Kenneth Garofalo, the CEO of BlockRelations, a PR and marketing agency for blockchain companies and digital assets issuers. So given the importance of marketing, additional input and additional content on that is definitely needed, and I am keen to hear the Ken's perspective. So welcome at our stage.
Thank you very much, Boris, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me. So again, my company is BlockRelations, and I am the CEO of that company. My name is Kenneth Garofalo, and today we'll be discussing the importance of marketing, developer relations, and community within blockchain in general and within digital assets. And this speech was particularly prepared for the Digital Asset Investment Conference that we're here today. I want to start by giving a big thanks to our partners, Stobox, Boris, Nadia, Ross, the rest of the team. You guys have been absolutely great. And anyone considering tokenizing equity, tokenizing an asset, creating digital assets, to definitely reach out to Stobox. These guys are great and have all the resources for you to accomplish your goals. So why is marketing essential to the success of a blockchain or digital asset? Well, in order to answer that, we must first really understand what is marketing. Marketing is more than just putting out a bunch of fancy graphics, once a month, once a week. It's a lot more than that. There's certain aspects of branding, reputational capital, and public relations aspects that cannot be earned overnight. Branding is something that you need to consistently drive your logo or your theme of your company into the mind of the consumer or the investor. This can be accomplished in numerous ways. Reputational capital is something that is earned and not bought. So this is something that can be generated from your past experiences as a business leader or your company's longevity, right? If your company has existed for many years and then, just recently you're exploring the new markets that digital assets can access for you, well, you might have this built up reputational capital already in the bank. Public relations is something that is an ongoing effort that you're going to need to maintain to publish press releases, get slotted in certain conference speaking spots, and sort of interact with the rest of your peers in the industry. So why do we need all this branding, reputational capital work? Why do we need public relations? Why do we need marketing? Well, will anyone invest in your SEO if they aren't confident in your messaging, in your team, or in your product? They probably won't, right? You have to establish this level of trust. And in some cases, you have to establish a level of education, because a lot of the stuff we're discussing here with digital assets could fly over the top of the head of your traditional investor. And you certainly don't want to leave any money on the table when it comes to raising funds. And you don't want to leave any liquidity on the table when it comes to the secondary market, which is a very important piece. A lot of companies might market heavily around their STO or around their initial fundraising phase, but they may not continue those efforts when it comes to the secondary markets and the aftermath of that fundraise. So you might see the liquidity dry up on the secondary markets as an effect of that. So it's important to stay consistent and to always have a plan that covers the life cycle of your company, of your digital asset. And the same goes for blockchain, right? So will anyone use your blockchain if it isn't seen as the next big thing? So we use a lot of media to create this message and to create this image of a pristine project, asset, or blockchain to get people excited to come on board. And that's what marketing is all about. So some examples here of what marketing could be. We mentioned press releases, graphics, of course, educational content, which is huge, right? So you can position yourself as a leader in educational content, even if you're not specifically an educational company. That's something important to remember. Podcasts, video interviews, these are very important aspects to help humanize the executives of your company. People are much more likely to trust you if they can understand where you're coming from a leadership perspective, from a human perspective. So these are all things we want to establish through a marketing campaign. And I want you guys to know, the audience, that BlockRelations does work with a variety of different companies and can work with you if you're considering tokenizing your equity or tokenizing your asset. We can work with you to create a marketing plan that will ensure success throughout your fundraise and throughout your secondary market lifecycle. So second, developer relations, they are key to innovation. So you might think that, okay, developer relations might not be that important to you if you're just a digital asset. You're not specifically a blockchain. Well, I want you to rethink that, because if you are digitizing your asset, you are inevitably going to be part of the developer community of a certain blockchain. You are going to be creating a smart contract that represents the token for your digital asset, for instance, right? So why do we need developer relations? And what is developer relations? So first, it's an awareness to get people interested, specifically developers. So developers are the backbone to any blockchain ecosystem. Without them, again, the platform may become irrelevant. So proper developer onboarding tracks allow for more devs to start using your blockchain. What this means is proper tutorials, proper walkthroughs, proper roadmaps on how to actually build on your blockchain. Certain standards need to be established. So for instance, in ERC20 or for Tezos, an FA2 standard for tokenization properties. So you definitely want to establish tracks so developers easily know how to start building on your blockchain. Collaboration, get people working together, right? So you want to establish events, hackathons, where people can come together and basically collaborate to optimize, enhance, and grow the surrounding tooling and documentation of your project. It's extremely difficult for a core team to be able to build out every piece of tooling needed for a successful blockchain ecosystem. So what you're trying to do here is provide a collaborative atmosphere so that other developers can sort of fill those gaps. And once the devs are excited about building, they will collaborate on their own, and you'll be really pleasantly surprised on the improvements to the process given a proper structure. So we want to establish that proper structure to inspire collaboration within the developer communities. Use case, get people building, right? This is the whole goal of establishing a strong developer relations plan, is you want to get people building on your blockchain. You want to be able to, again, provide those developer tutorials and walkthroughs, roadmaps, examples of apps being built so that the developer can sort of be inspired by what they see in those tutorials and then build on their own. And again, I want to mention this from a digital asset perspective. So although you may have just wanted to tokenize your asset and you don't really want to contribute much to the developer side of that specific blockchain, well, you still had to choose a specific blockchain to tokenize on. So let's say you tokenized on Ethereum or you tokenized on Tezos. It would definitely help you from a marketing perspective if you became an active participant with the developers in those communities. So something to keep in the back of your mind. And lastly here, community matters. This is for blockchains, this is for digital assets. Without community, blockchain and digital assets will go unused and have limited liquidity in secondary markets. This is huge, right? So the main reason that most of you are probably looking into tokenizing your digital asset is to access liquidity in secondary markets. But without anyone knowing you exist, right, this technology is relatively new. Will they actually use it, right? Will they actually invest? Will they actually trade the token, the digital asset? Probably not, right? So you need to give your community members a consistent place to gather and share information around your ecosystem, right? Whether this means meetups, whether this means Telegram groups, having an online presence, a Twitter account, for instance, a Discord channel. You need to establish these forums where the community members can come and meet, almost like you meet every once a week for religion or something like that, right? You want to build an area where people can come and talk and collaborate in. So you also want to give your community member, you want to listen to your community's feedback and follow through with their suggestions. Nothing discourages a community more than when you don't listen to their feedback. So you want, as much as you can, you want to be listening to the suggestions that your community members give. And a secondary option to that is giving your community members the power to vote. This could be from a blockchain perspective. Say your blockchain is proof of stake. Well, allowing the holders of the assets themselves to have a say in the direction of how the chain evolves. For instance, Tezos is a great example of this. Almost anyone you speak to in the Tezos community is going to tell you the number one reason that they participate in all Tezos related events or activities or forums is because that they have this sense of powerful community that's derived from their power to vote for protocol upgrades, for instance, right? From a digital asset perspective, maybe you're giving your investors the power to vote shareholder votes, right? So maybe it's a shareholder meeting and you're voting on the blockchain using the share of the asset the digital asset that's tokenized. So if it's not something that you've thought of yet, you should definitely think of giving the power to vote to your community because it inspires them to stay active. So there are many different types of community members, and it's also important not to discard any one of these types. So the investor, the developer, the core team, right? The list goes on. It's just important to be aware that it's not just one specific type of person that you're the community. There is a diverse group of people that you need to cater to, and they might have all different requirements to keep them satisfied. And again, this is part of your marketing plan should identify how to interact with all these types of community members and provide longevity for their activity. And again, we want to be smart, calculated, and efficient in all of the efforts that we deploy to market our digital asset and to manage our developer or community relations, right? So we want to consistently evaluate and analyze meaningful metrics of our efforts, whether or not this is views, clicks, comments, search, or reach for our efforts. And again, us here at BlockRelations, we can prepare certain analytic reports that will give feedback on the efforts that you're running either with our company or with your own company. So outside of just the planning and the execution, we also are able to provide you analytics reports for your efforts. And so what's the point of all this, right? Why do we need to put so much time into marketing, into community, into developer relations? Well, this is the answer, guys. It's the network effect. 70% of value creation in tech, top-tier tech companies, is derived from this network effect. Like I said before, the core team can only do so much. You're going to need contributions from the community members and from other developers to really gain the full network effect of the digital asset of the blockchain, right? Whether or not this means, again, the liquidity in the secondary market or how many transactions are occurring within your blockchain, right? You need that network effect. And again, this number comes from a study from NFX on tech companies from 1994 through 2017. So this is a long proven point for extremely valuable companies, top tier companies that they take advantage of. And so you yourself as a digital asset should be taking advantage of the network effect. So again, my name is Ken Garofalo. The company is BlockRelations. We would love to connect with everyone watching this here to help you start planning your release in the life cycle of your digital asset. We have video chat available. Our calendly.com/BlockRelations is also available. The link on our website, blockrelations.com. You can also email us directly at contact@BlockRelations. So we have a bunch of discovery we can do with you to get you on the right plan that works for you, whether it's a digital asset or a blockchain that you're launching. So please reach out to us with any questions. And if the audience has any questions for me right now, Boris, I would love to answer those.
First of all, I want to thank you for the amazing speech. The points, I would say, from all of the speeches we had on this conference, we had fantastic speakers from many powerful institutions. This one was either the most practical or one of the practically useful to issuers of digital assets. So I'm grateful to you for this. The point of education was great, and we found on our own practice that it actually works. We have a YouTube channel in Stobox, and even though it is small, we have 150 subscribers. We already get a few leads, one of whom transformed to client doing an actual token raise with us from the YouTube. So, and we often get feedback that this is one of the few places where clients can get the practical information on STOs, the real insights. So the point about education was, I would say, very clear. Yeah, we do have a few questions from the audience. One is about community, and the question is, how can projects expand their community? Because the communities often are very siloed. You have a few small communities. How do you expand from one to a second and third and get them to your ecosystem?
That's a great point. I mean, we're living in an age where this technology is global, so your community should be global as well. But what that means is that you might be dealing with siloed communities in different regions, such as Europe, Malta, Kiev, Ukraine, Africa, right? Asia, and of course, US, South America, right? So what I would start with is establishing a plan on how you want to penetrate those global community markets, and then start by approaching people that show the most interest from those locations. You could start by geographically planning this out, and then sort of try to identify leaders within those specific geographic locations that can act as community leads and sort of self-organize, maybe with some funding or some direction. So really what you're doing is you're building a global community plan where you're establishing hotspots or hubs with leaders. It's, you know, leaders that you want to build up their reputation and make them well known within the greater community, the global community, that these are the people to go to if you wanted to. Hey, I'm from Europe, but I want to, you know, I'm traveling to the US. I want to see if I can meet up with someone that's involved in my community. Well, I know there's a leader. Why don't I reach out to this point of contact, right? Well, they might tell me that, oh, you know, so-and-so is hosting an event. Why don't you go to that, right? So now I've got a connection point. Secondly, you should have a global event that brings together all of those local leaders from around the globe at least annually, right? I would suggest biannually. So now you're exchanging ideas, you're innovating within the different community tactics that you've used in your siloed geographic areas. You're now sharing that those ideas within a global conference, this biannual global conference, I'll suggest. So really it's about planning. It's about realizing that there are different silos and different thought processes within the different locations around the world, but you want to really try to grasp and cultivate a global community.
That's a great answer. Thank you. And we have one more question from the audience. The question is about the developer relations. So if you're running a project that is not a blockchain, but let's say a crypto exchange or a marketplace, you know, real estate or any other marketplace, then what matters to you is not developer relations, but the relations with, for example, professional traders and crypto traders, or relations with you know, sellers on the marketplace. Is it correct?
Yes and no. So of course you're going to have relations with those traders, right? That's going to be big for you if you are, let's say, an exchange, right? But I would like to say that you should also have relationships with the core development teams of the blockchains that you support, right? So this could mean you're trading an asset and that blockchain goes through an upgrade, and you need to change some of your documentation to make sure that asset continues trading smoothly on your platform. So you should have open communication lines with the developers from all of these different blockchains that foster the assets that are trading within your platform. So it might even be a good idea for you to establish events or themes that cater to these different developers within these different blockchain ecosystems for the assets that trade on your platform. And I would like you to also keep a note that sometimes these developers are actually the largest traders that exist, right? Developers actually get paid quite well. And if they're the ones founding some of these platforms or assets, they probably have a lot of these assets to trade themselves. So you're sort of hitting on both points when you actually focus on these developers.
Thank you for your reply. I don't see more questions in the chat, so that's probably all. Thank you again for your speech. Thank you for joining. Thank you for yeah.
I have one more point, Boris, before I leave. I'm gonna leave this little nugget with the community and with you here. Maybe you can think about this. So, with the rise of liquidity pools and DeFi products that we've seen coming out here in the last few months, I want people to start really thinking about what this means for security tokens or digital assets, right? The whole reason why we want to digitalize assets is to access liquidity on secondary markets, right? But you still might find there is not a lot of liquidity once these assets are tokenized. So I want people to start looking into how to use these liquidity pools to provide more liquidity to these illiquid digital assets that are still currently existing. right? You basically, I won't go into it now. If you just want to look up what a liquidity pool is, you'll sort of get an idea, and hopefully the wheels start turning. But I think this could be revolutionary for illiquid assets, especially security tokens or digital assets. So that's the final note I'll leave this on. Thank you very much, Boris, for having me. I really appreciate Stobox, and BlockRelations loves working with you guys, and we are really happy to be here today.
Thank you for a great speech. Thank you for kind words about us. It was a pleasure to have you on this conference, and wish you all the best.